maybe this is more so a call to like live a more playful life for sure. But you can only do so much at the beginning of a phone call. You can only do so much at the start of a journey, and then like it progresses there on like how you want to like further continue it or change or like grow and evolve. But like you at least have to just choose a starting point.
Hi, I'm Danielle, and welcome back to Making Space. Not just a podcast, but a place for honest, open conversations about where people have been and who they're becoming. So I get to start this episode with a super fun update that my friend Vienna from episode 2 recently got an amazing job that she's actually starting this week, and I am so happy for her. If you haven't listened to episode 2, then you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, so I highly recommend that you go listen to it because her experience pivoting in life is so inspiring. And now you know it has a happy ending. Okay, so today's conversation is a bit different from the past two because I came into it with the vague idea that my friend Destny wanted to talk about having a childlike spirit. It's definitely one of her most notable characteristics, but it's a more abstract idea. So looking back, it's pretty cool to see how our conversation naturally evolved into one about cultivating a joyful life, which I think is more relevant than ever today with so much going on in the world. Life is hard, we all know this. But the beautiful thing about joy is that it's not entirely dependent on our circumstances. Destny and I met my sophomore year of college at the very first small group Bible study I led. I invited a mutual friend and Destny tagged along and ended up sticking with the group for the entire year until she became a small group leader. We're both huge proponents of investing in your friendships, so naturally she's an incredible friend and travel buddy. She came to visit me in Boston earlier in March, so this is also my very first in-person recording for the podcast. You can't see us, so picture both of us awkwardly sitting on my bed, propped up by an unnecessary number of pillows at 9 p.m., while my downstairs neighbors were actually throwing a party that you conveniently can't hear because of my pro editing skills. Okay, do you have an image? Great. Let's get into the conversation. This is not Destiny's first podcast, so we have a seasoned professional on here, okay? She's been on another podcast before.
I'm attempting, yeah. I'm just a guest actor.
Oh, guest star.
Yeah, guest star.
That's funny. Okay, so what have you learned, or what are you currently learning that you wish your younger self could have known?
I think just approaching life through, like, the lens of a child, like, just being playful and joyful. I think especially like when I was younger, middle school, high school, I was very concerned about like how like the next step of life would come. And honestly, this past week I've been in Boston and whenever people are like, so what are you doing? I'm like, I'm unemployed. And it's like, that sounds so dumb to say kind of sometimes, but it's the choice that I've made and I just like get to enjoy my life and not be so worried about it because I feel like for a long time I was really worried about life, like med school. I always knew I wanted to be a doctor, like when it would happen. Even like this year, I don't feel like I'm gonna get into a school. If people ask me about med school, I could be like, oh, like avoid the question. I know people that definitely avoid the question, but for me, it's like I'm embracing it while staying true to like, oh, this is my reality, and like I can do better, but I'm not gonna be sobbing about it. So, just being joyful through whatever situation I'm going through.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you're pulling in your current experience of like being in this waiting season. Like you're applying to med school, you decided to apply again. You recently left the job that you were doing while you were waiting through the first cycle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, can you talk a little bit more about what that means to you? Like having a childlike spirit, being playful, like what does that mean? Especially now that we're in our 20s. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is, like, kids, they don't really, like, think about the future per se. Like, they know the fun things they want to do, but they don't think or worry about the future too much. And while, like, it is important and good for me to plan my future, it's, like, I feel like a lot of us already know our plans in our heads. Like, if someone asks what age you want to get married, you're not going to be, like, thinking for 5 minutes, maybe 32, 28, XY. Like, you already know. Like, you already have all that mapped out in your head. So there's no point of carrying that map with you all the time if you already know it. So, like, being more childlike is being, like, more, like, with the flow type of thing. I think one of the biggest things I learned from childhood, especially from mine. I always kind of wanted to stay at parties longer. I hated leaving. I would cry when it was time to go. And it's funny because I feel like I've been an introvert for a long period of my life, except maybe my early childhood years. And so, like, now I'm just, like, kind of the person that stays in the moment. I try not to rush out of leaving places. If I'm somewhere, especially if I like it, I just want to, like, enjoy instead of being like, oh, it's time to move on to the next thing for the day. So I feel like that's one of the ways of being childlike.
Mm-hmm. Being present. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely... It's hard. It's hard. I feel like it was my senior year of college. I had to be very intentional because I easily will think, okay, all this is nice, but in 4 months it's all going to end and I'm going to be feeling XYZ way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like I had to mentally prepare myself for the future of being sad by like telling myself, oh, it's okay, you're going to be sad in the future. Mm-hmm. When in reality, the way I thought things were going to play out were not the way things played out. Obviously, it was, hard moving and graduating and moving on from that season of life. But I feel like I wasted time trying to prepare myself to be sad. And I don't know if people do that, preparing yourself to be sad. Maybe that's dumb. But just that idea of being present, I tried to remind myself of that also during that time. Like, you're never going to get this moment again. Or anybody in life, at any point in life, you're never going to be in the same moment that you are ever again. Mm-hmm. And so, like, being able to appreciate it for what it is and not think about the past or think about the future, but just, like, sitting in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't feel like the way I'd prepare myself before was, like, that I would be sad. I do definitely feel like when moments come that are kind of hard, like, I will be sad about it, but I feel like, I don't know, just really thinking, like, right now, since I'm like, oh, I'm specifically talking about child, like, I think one thing, like, when kids are upset, that's it, they're upset. They don't care about being happy for their parents or, like, pleasing anybody. They're just very much in their field. So definitely when, like, something hard is going on or, like, I'm upset by something, I, like, acknowledge that I'm sad and I'm not trying to, like, actively work out of being there. I feel like the emotion will pass eventually. So that's why I don't try to, like, not be sad at the moment, but yeah, I feel that, like, when you're going through transitions, it's definitely hard. I think preparing yourself is an interesting perspective, because I feel like at least it prepared you to move on to what's next. Sometimes it's hard to move on to what's next.
Yeah, and I guess maybe where I think it didn't help me was because you don't fully know what you're going to be feeling. Mm-hmm. So if you're just assuming, oh, it'll be like this, then you're just wasting time being sad about the future when in reality, that future point may not be as sad as you think it'll be.
Yeah. It's kind of like missing the possible exciting parts of it.
Yeah.
I feel like interesting thing, like when you're preparing to move to the city, one of the things that you would say is like, I'm not going to have any friends. And I was just like, huh? Like, in my head, I was like, I'm not really quite sure the calculations for that, but eventually you will make friends. Every human being has to make friends. And not only that, like, you've definitely done it before in college, and you're definitely, like, a great person to make friends with. So I feel like, yeah, it's, when you're looking towards the future, you kind of have to look towards the, like, exciting part. And even, like, my baby cousin, whenever we tell her we're going to something later on in the future, she's like, but will this be there? Like, she's listing all the possible, like, best things that could happen. Even though, like, we, the adults, still don't know. We're just like, maybe, but she's like, but will there be ice cream? Like, she's just listing everything. She's just, like, looking at the positive. She has no idea what negatives are in life.
And so that's what you try to do in day to day. You're, like, trying to channel this spirit of just, like, yeah, taking each moment as it comes, looking at the positives, not overthinking, not overstressing.
Yeah. I think for a long time, I was a big overthinker. Yeah, and I can't, like, really pinpoint right now at the moment the things I would overthink about, but for sure, I overthought a lot of things, but that's also, I feel like, a big part of my personality, to just, like, really think things through or think about possibilities, so I'm learning more to, like, yeah, really be present. Because if I'm present, then I don't have as much brain capacity to think about what could possibly happen in the future.
Yeah. And so, how has this been received by, like, the people around you?
I don't know. I feel like, for me, I hardly let other people's perspectives of me come into how I view myself. I feel like often I will share with people like, oh, I'm very playful. When I'm trying to explain a story, I have this one friend. He was stressed about something in life, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But like, you like also see me, like, I have very similar struggles, and I don't talk about them very much. But like, I'm also like very joyful. And it's like, yeah, you're always kind of like laughing or playing or like tickling somebody or something. Yeah, so I feel like people can see it, but also I feel like people are intentional or like really attracted to what's good or like what's life bringing. Not necessarily positive, because you can be positive about everything, but it doesn't really mean anything if it's not being positive about the right things. Especially like from like political or economic views or whatever. But if you're someone that's truly like life bringing because you're enjoying life, but you're also like realistic about life, and you're also like, if you're a joyful person, like, you're allowed to be more loving and stuff, I feel like it brings people towards me that, like, they know that, like, I'm not, like, actively, like, their safe haven, but I am a safe haven for, like, my own joy. And so people can come towards me with, like, oh, we're gonna have a good time. We're also gonna talk about real stuff, but not, like, talk about it in a toxic positivity way. Yeah. I feel like a lot of my friends, or a few of my friends right now at the moment, are a bit older than me. And so when my birthday passed in November, they're like, you turned 23? Like, we thought you were older. It's like, no, I just have figured out the approach in life I would like to take. So I feel like it also, like, brings, like, a crown of wisdom as well. Yeah, because, older and wiser people, they're also, like, at peace a lot of the times, too, because they're like, you can't control tomorrow, so they're living in today.
Yeah, I love what you were saying about being like a person that brings life into like the conversations and the friendships that you have.
Yeah.
And that being something that you aim to do. Because I think on one hand, it's easy to say, okay, like, you're living in this unrealistic world. The world is hard, but it's not that you're ignoring the realities of the world that we live in. It's just that your mindset or the way that you operate functions on this level that's like, I understand all these things and I'm willing to address them and talk about them. Mm-hmm. But at my core, I want to be someone that like is joyful and tries to live a full life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like, I think for me before too, just with like med school and stuff like that, I do think like a fear that I personally have is like, oh, am I not like trying hard enough? Am I not on the grind enough like other people? But like there are people that try so hard and like still they don't make it in. And it's like, I do believe like God's grace for my life is like that. I would do medicine because for a long time I was like, God, is there any other careers out there for me? Yeah. Like, let me know. But I never felt like he let me know. And I don't really feel like there's anything else that like I'm like, oh, like I could live without if I don't try medicine first. But there's this girl that I know and she got into like a really good school. And like when I was asking her about like her experience in going to that school, a big part of their curriculum, and a lot of med schools now, the curriculum is like to be compassionate doctors. And compassionate doctors, like at the root of it is being a compassionate person. But I feel like a compassionate person, like, understands the spectrum of human emotions, not just, like, that you have to work hard, but, like, also that there's, like, joy to be lived in life as well. And so in UC San Diego's program, like, a really big thing that they're doing is they're spending more time in, like, meditation, like, where it's incorporated into, like, the curriculum. And so my friend, she was just saying how, like, it brings her a lot more like joy that like school's like slower pace than she ever imagined it would be. And like, yeah, I know like this is one of the top ranking schools academically, but like to see that this is like the mindset of the school is like what even makes me more attracted to that school, like to apply again in the future. And also I'm not worried about it because like she took 2 years before like she got there. So it's like I can be this person and take my time to get to school. Like I know like will happen for me if like I still stay positive about it. Life is meant to be lived in a joyful perspective.
Yeah. And even what you said about, like, taking your time and going back to, like, how children, I feel like they're not in the moment thinking about, oh, I need a rush to get through this. I need a rush to get through that. Because they don't have that, like, forward-looking perspective as much, which I guess comes with age, but they're just focused on, like, the present and in the moment. And, yeah, living here in Boston, I feel like it's definitely a faster pace of life than Texas. For some reason, yeah, the Northeast is just like that. And we've been talking about that, like eliminating hurry from your life and like what is busyness and all of those things. But how that can keep you from being joyful if you're so focused on like where you want to be and not where you are currently.
Yeah.
Okay, you're teaching us right now. If we were to read like Destiny's Guide to like living a joyful life, Destiny's Guide to like having a childlike spirit, what are the things that you do that enable you to have that sort of lifestyle?
I think one of the biggest things, like, I think I've already acknowledged everything that I'm doing, everything that, like, I want to get better at, and maybe the things that I failed at for sure, too. Like, one, I'm taking into account all the things I could have done and I am doing. It's like, I am taking on, like, realistic perspectives in life. But then, two, I think there's, like, a daily reset. More so, like, morning devotion. I feel like that's the height of where it comes from. But I think, in addition to, like, morning devotion, like, spending time with God, praying, one thing I've always kind of been big on is, like, going out by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe this is, like, what allows me to also be, like, a joyful person, too. Because in our society nowadays, to prove that you're socially successful, you must have pictures of yourself going out. You must have pictures not just of yourself going out, but, like, groups of people, and show that, like, you're surrounded by people all the time. And one thing that I've always done, at least I really noticed I was doing in college before, is even a hashtagable thing. It's like going out with myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I always learn to enjoy my presence even when I'm by myself. I feel like initially I started with going to the mall, like walking in the mall. And honestly, nowadays, like, not that it's hard to go to the mall by myself, but nowadays I'm like, whoa, I, like, notice couples and stuff. I didn't notice couples before too hard, but now I'm like, oh, I see all these couples, and it's like, I'm still okay with not being in a relationship. So I think one of the important things, in addition to morning devotions, like, just spending time with yourself, because you only have one self, and some people are tired of themselves, and it's like, that's tragic. It's just tragic, because you should not be tired of yourself. You should find yourself as one of the most comforting people to hang out with when there's nothing else going on. So I think that's one of the big things. For me, I feel like for the longest time I was very, like, sensitive / avoidant to, like, my family's needs, because I just felt like people would ask me for a lot of stuff. But now, like, it's no more like listening to the conversation as if, like, they're commanding me, but it's more so approaching it as, like, let me help you. Just, like, a shift in perspective. And then also finding a lot more, like, laughter / joking through conversations. Everything doesn't have to be serious. Even the serious stuff. Because, like, it's hard to deliver love to people if you're being stern, like a commander of an army. But it's easier to, like, deliver love if, like, you're laughing and showing someone that you enjoy their presence. That's a really big thing as well. The manner in which you speak to someone or approach a conversation with someone about, like, things you're not really in the mood to talk about.
Yeah. Where to begin? I think it's true that you have been someone who's, like, always done stuff by yourself and been comfortable, like, going out by yourself. And it kind of reminds me of this book I read, The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness, but just how it's so easy for us to be very self-absorbed and always think, like, and I'm saying this because I feel like a big reason people don't like doing things by themselves is because, like, oh, it's weird for me to be doing things by myself. People see me and they're like, why are you at this restaurant by yourself? Why are you at the movies by yourself? When in reality, people are not that concerned about us, especially strangers that don't know us. They really are not concerned about you at all. But in our minds, we are, like, always looking at ourselves. So the whole idea of the book is, like, thinking of yourself less. Not thinking less of yourself, just thinking about yourself less. And I feel like that's something you've definitely mastered, in being able to just say, I'm going to be intentional about wanting to do things by myself. It's not because I have to, it's because I want to.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, right, we spend the most time with ourselves. Like, over the span of your life, the person you've spent the most time with is probably yourself.
Yeah.
So cultivating a good relationship with yourself is very important.
Yeah. I think one that I just remembered too is, like, so I live in Houston, or more specifically, like, the suburbs. And so, like, for the longest time, like, after moving back with COVID and college and all that stuff, I'm like, there's nothing to do here. This place is boring. I was like, this place is dry. I actually need stuff to do. And, like, at this point, I had kind of, like, visited other cities, such as Boston and LA and Miami. And I was like,
traveling girl.
Yeah, and I was like, But Houston's my everyday and it's dry. And so I feel like I had to be like a lot more intentional with like, oh, let me not hate the place where I'm planted. Let me find these fun things as well in the place that I'm planted. So I found that like one of the things I really enjoy doing is walking. Yes, that means I do have to drive to like the really walkable neighborhoods / developments / like bigger parks. But, like, it's, like, making that effort to do stuff that you found that you love in other places and intentionally, like, bringing it home to you. I feel like I do like salsa dancing. It's not something, like, really big that I have to do. But it's like, oh, I can also be intentional and be like, oh, let me go look for salsa dancing. Especially, like, it's Houston. So, even though that was, like, really big in Miami, like, it's going to be big in Houston, too, due to our Latin population. So, yeah, just for being also intentional about bringing the stuff that I like from other cities to my home city as well. It's like my daily experience and not being like, oh, I have to wait to go to that place to get those things again.
Yeah. And it sounds so simple, right? It's like, okay, find things that I like to do where I live. But it's very real to like move somewhere, move back home, whatever, and feel like, oh, I don't like this place, so I'm just going to stay at home because there's nothing here that I like. But it's like being intentional and like showing up to your life is what I like to say.
Yeah.
I think where I'm approaching this conversation from, I think something that I find in the other people in my life, something that draws me to them is, just not taking life too seriously, not taking yourself too seriously. I feel like it's easy to do that as you get older, as you have more responsibilities, maybe a higher title. Yeah, just like not being careless, but just being more carefree about things and not being afraid to like have a good laugh. I mean, why would you be afraid to do that? But welcoming that and pursuing that actively because it's actually true. You live longer if you laugh more.
Yeah.
I think I read something about like there's a graph over your lifespan and how like the amount of times you laugh per day decreases significantly past a certain age, which is really sad. So just a friendly encouragement to laugh today if you haven't already. And obviously you can't laugh by yourself because that's crazy, but no, you can laugh by yourself because you can laugh at yourself. Anyways. What is it?
Okay, so I feel like as you were saying that, there were 2 points that came to my head, but I forgot the first one. So the second one, so one of the things that you told me, like you're watching probably a TikTok video and you're saying that the TikTok video was like, when you're making jokes, like, I feel like all of us are jokesters. Like, we have the potential to be jokesters. When you're making jokes, like, your target audience has to be yourself. So I feel like that's probably one of the ways to keep up laughing for the rest of your life. But then 2 is my next target audience is, like, the people I'm living with. Like, it's great to make friends and stuff like that. But because I do live with my family, like, I always want to, like, prioritize helping them while I'm still, like, with them. I won't be with them my whole life. Please pray for me that the time I leave won't be when I get married, because I don't want to leave when I'm married. I want to leave before that. But anyways, so, like, also, like, making my family, like, my laughing demographic. The amount of, like, random things, like, I'll tell my mom and she'll start laughing, and it's like, that's honestly part of the best feeling, to just, like, laugh with the people around you, to intentionally want to make them, like, joke. Because it's not even, like, I think it's a good joke and I just want her to hear it, but it's more so, like, I want to play around with you, and I know you find this particular thing funny, so I'm going to tell it to you till you start laughing. Yeah. So, yeah, laughing is important. And I have a baby cousin. Maybe this is a bad example, but the way that she'll be doing stuff, like, she'll, like, start pulling pranks and stuff, and she's, like, 3, maybe 4. But she does it, like, to annoy the person she's doing it to, like, maybe taking my earbuds, and she knows they belong to me. And then when you ask for it back, she, like, starts laughing and walking away. But, like, children do this stuff to just entertain themselves. It's important to entertain yourself, for sure, to laugh.
Yeah, I love that. You are your target audience.
Yes.
It's so true, because a lot of people will not get your sense of humor, but that's okay as long as you get it.
I know, and the people that get my sense of humor, when they like copy the way I make a joke, I'm like, you get me. I'm like, you feel me? I'm so happy. I'm like, we can be friends now forever. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I do really think like you are someone who just has, just like a spirit about you that is joyful and also playful, and curious. I think you do approach life with like a sense of curiosity, and it is something that makes you very unique. And I guess a question is like, how do you maintain that sense of wonder in life in such a serious world?
Yeah. I think the main thing is, I often say that, like, if something comes to mind, like a question that I have comes to mind, I'm going to ask it regardless. Even though it might sound dumb or it might make someone uncomfortable, I'm going to ask it regardless. And I think just jumping back to one of the things that you had just said, when you're talking about, like, laughing, like how people decrease their laughter throughout life. I think one of the big things that probably makes people decrease their laughter, some people hate their laugh, and it's like, this is something we should love, because awkward sounding laughs are also what make it more funny too. And it's like, we should embrace that part of ourselves. So like, I feel like embracing every part of me, like my curiosity, what other people might find weird, is like what helps me to like remain kind of like wonder-like. My friends know this, but like almost every day, I'll come up with like a new epiphany and I'll say it, even though it might not make sense. Literally today I was talking about how, like, the diameter of a raindrop is smaller than the diameter of a snowflake, and real quick physics is just because as water freezes, like, it expands through to, like, its change in density. I did not research this. This is just what came to my mind randomly. I'm going to say it out loud. So this is what I believe about some topic. I'm going to share with my friends. Probably going to look at me crazy for half a second, but and speaking about this raindrop/snowflake epiphany that came up with me, my friends were like then joking about what's the difference between snow and snowflakes. And it's like just being open to have like conversations about like whatever. So like it's what kind of keeps curiosity and wonder going. Because if you're not open to saying whatever, then you're kind of left with like a script to say in life. And I don't want to be reduced to life where like my script becomes, so the weather today. And that's the rest of the conversation. Yeah, it was hot today. Yeah, it rained. My boots got soaked. Huh? That's not a full life.
This is so painful because whenever you don't know what conversation to make with someone, specifically in a work setting, you start talking about the weather. I can't explain it. I'm so guilty of doing this. Anyways, I really like what you said about like embracing every part of yourself and whatever that is, like the awkwardness, the curiosity, and the point about laughing. So our friend Demi Lola has previously said that like one of the worst things you can do is make fun of how someone expresses joy, which is like how they laugh. And I'm not going to at anybody right now, but I will say, I will say that at one point in my life, the laugh I had was severely ridiculed in joking ways, but it was severely ridiculed, and unintentionally my laugh changed after that. Aww. So, I'm not going to at anybody, but you know who you are. Anyways.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, but also I think like an uncurated version of yourself, like an uncreated version of like what you say, is also like a very childlike property, like characteristic, because like kids, they live through wonder, like more so like they have the biggest, wildest imaginations. And I think things that a lot of companies are coming back to, especially like the really big ones, the big tech ones, they're coming back to, I feel like there's like a slowly emerging culture of like fun spaces / playing spaces / doing fun activities as a group to like really foster like creativity, because even scientists know the way that like not just creativity in the sense of like creating drawings and paintings, but creativity in the more so the sense of like thinking outside the box or finding like new novel approaches, like solutions. The best way that comes about is through having fun, because the brain, like more parts of it are activated, more like synapses, like networks are open in the mind, so like you can think more diverse thoughts. At work, if you're always constantly thinking a certain way, literally the structure of your brain can only like go down through a certain avenue. It's like saying you want to get to like a coffee shop and you're always driving down the same road, as opposed to like if you're taking like a creative route to get to your coffee shop, Like, you completely abandon your map and you're like, oh, I'm just going to try to go to the left today, even though I know the coffee shop is on the right, so that makes no sense to go to the left. But, like, you're going to, like, go down the road, try to find your coffee shop, and in the process of it, you might find, like, a completely different coffee shop and try it and be like, you like it. And so my point is, like, when you're living through, like, more creative spaces, you're allowed to, like, have more ideas. And this is also why kids, like, are able to have, like, more ideas or, like, more creations about, like, life and stuff. So I feel like it is important to take time to play, even in workspaces, like, to take time to, like, find fun or, like, group activities to, like, have better ideas.
And now that you say that, I just realized I don't think I've ever heard the word play being used in any setting in a really long time. And I guess now, you know, we don't use the word play because we associate that with, like, okay, playing with toys. But maybe now we do that in different ways. So we use different words to describe what that means, like allowing yourself to be curious. And we have, like, innovation labs or like brainstorming sessions. That's not really playing, but I don't know, just using, like, expanding your brain, like throwing out ideas. We still do play games, I guess. So maybe we use the word in that sense. Like board games. And people always enjoy it. It's not like we don't enjoy it. You just do it less. I feel like if you're not intentional about it.
Yeah. And I think about being intentional about it, we do live in a very big consumer society. I do feel like people that are more on the content creator side / creator sides are more of the producing side. And so, like, with entertainment, we just consume. Like, we take in what's, like, pre-made. But that's why also children have, well, a good portion of children, some of them have, like, short spans for, like, watching TV because they'd rather be doing something else than just sitting down to watch TV, unless it's, like, one of their favorite shows. But even if it is their favorite show, I feel like a lot of adults know about Baby Shark. If you don't, you need to hang out with kids, because a kid is instantaneously going to be like, let's sing Baby Shark. But, like, take, for example, like, singing Baby Shark. This is not just something that a kid is passively listening to. They're standing up, doing the dance moves, they're singing the song, they're now producing their own joy in watching Baby Shark. They're not passively consuming Baby Shark. And so I feel like in life too, even if you're not gonna, like, spend so much time of playing, it's like the entertainment that you do when you come home from work, such as, like, Netflix, that's just such a consumer thing, but there's more, like, producing things you can do, such as, like, playing board games. And that's why I feel like we don't do it enough, because, like, it will take an effort to initiate starting a board game more than just pressing play on Netflix, but it's so much more worth it, I feel, at the end. You're definitely going to remember a game night over binging a Netflix show. And plus, there's a statistic or, like, a study that if you binge a show as opposed to watching it spread out, your brain won't have enough time to, like, memorize and save those details. So you're not really watching anything at that point if you're binging.
Oh my gosh. That was like mic drop, like everything you just said. So good. That idea of producing versus consuming. And okay, nobody cares to know this. I feel like I keep telling people, and it's not because I need everyone to know, but I am currently taking a break from TikTok. So I am currently taking a break because I realized, while it is an amazing place and, like, there's so much to consume, which is probably half the problem, is that there's so much that you could consume and you're never going to be able to consume all of it, and your brain gets addicted to the app and, like, the platform and the way it's structured, and you want to keep scrolling, keep consuming. But I realized, like, there's a point where this is no longer adding anything to my life. Like, yes, you can get inspiration from it, but after, like, 500 videos, all the information you're consuming, first of all, you don't remember any of it. Because there's so much information, I'm like, wow, this is great. I could not tell you today what it was that I watched, or who was talking about it, or anything like that. I save a bunch of videos and I never go back and rewatch them. So I realized it wasn't adding anything to my life. It was only, like, taking time that I could be putting into other things. Like, if I want to create more things, the time that I would be able to do that is being consumed by this app. And so I love what you were saying about, like, the Baby Shark example. Like, a child is not just passively consuming things. Like, they are an active participant in their joy. And it's like, you know, obviously TikTok brings a lot of laughs. That's great. Then how can you go from there to, like, cultivate joy in your own life? Whether that's, like, spending time with friends and laughing about things, or, like, watching a show with someone and then talking about it. You can't binge. Usually, I feel like people don't really binge watch with other people because you're not going to be sitting with someone for like 9 hours. Not saying, I mean, maybe people do this, but I don't know. I feel like it's less common. I feel like it's more common to binge watch things by yourself. And so that is like, I don't know. That's just something to think about in saying, okay, am I even processing anything I'm consuming after a certain point?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do love TikTok for sure. It is like literally a digital library. But I feel like with TikTok, it's like you're just reading the cover page of books. Like, you don't get to read the full book. Especially like if it's like how to crochet a sweater. Watching that 15-second video is not going to tell you all the stitches. Like, just because I know how to crochet and I learned this as a kid, watching that 15-second video is not going to teach you the appropriate like looping techniques and stitching techniques to make something. You have to watch something like slower, such as a YouTube video.
Yeah.
And so, like, exactly with TikTok is like inspiring you to produce, but it doesn't give you enough juice to like actively like be producing. Like, keeps you in the circle wheel, like consuming. Like, it's giving you the hope to produce, but you never get there if you're just watching it. You actively have to like take your own time to like produce with your own hands.
Yeah. And I feel like at the end of the day, it is more life-giving to do that, to be an active participant in your life. But it takes more work. It takes energy. Like, now that I think about it, everything that you said in your, I guess, the top things that you do to live like a joyful life and like to have like childlike spirit, it's not like you passively doing these things. Like, it's active things that you do. You decide, oh, I'm going to wake up early and like have my morning devotionals and spend time with God because that is something that is life-giving to me. And then I'm going to like plan things out that I want to do by myself or with other people because these are things that I enjoy. I'm going to help my family. Yeah, that's another example that you gave. You're going to reframe it in your mind, not as someone like telling you something to do, but as something that you get to do and just being servant-hearted and helping your family out. But that also takes time and energy. And so none of these things are passive, but that doesn't mean they're any less rewarding.
Yeah. I feel like that is true. Like, we live in a society where we're always like, we don't have energy to do stuff, which I feel like that makes sense. There is a capacity to what the human body can do, but also, yeah, kids are constantly growing, so they do have technically a lot of energy, but like people that like constantly like working out as well, we see that there is the capacity to like, grow one's energy, to grow like how we can use our body in space. So I do feel like it is hard to like initiate these activities of doing more for oneself. But when you get into the rhythm of doing more for yourself, I feel like it's going to be really hard to turn back and do the more passive version. I feel like it just takes kind of like a leap of faith to start and be like, I'm going to do those things. But once you start, it's definitely worthwhile because you're not willing to take a seat back in life anymore.
Yeah, a backseat in your life. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
And like, now that I reflect, I feel like this topic is perfect for, I guess, the core idea behind this podcast and thinking about our younger selves. And this is you like channeling, I guess, the way that you thought and the way that you like functioned as your younger self into your present day self.
Yeah. I think for me, I think of like, oh, if I could have done anything as a kid, like what would I do now? I think especially just because I did have a bit of a hard childhood. Some people will use their hard childhoods as like a reason to have a hard life, but it's like, even though you're going through a hard childhood, there was still so much like that you found joyful, so much that you wanted to do, and it's like just taking that time that like you are the adult version of yourself that have the money, the time, the space, the capacity, also the like self-knowledge to do those things. Because like, say you wanted to go ziplining all the time as a kid, if you're from a Nigerian household, your parents would be asked, why do you want to go and hang yourself between an abyss and two trees? But now that you're a young adult, I can probably figure stuff out and make sure you don't die when you're going ziplining. Then you can go ahead and do those things.
So is there anything else on this topic that you wanted to share that you didn't get to?
I feel like maybe this is more so a call to like live a more playful life for sure. But you can only do so much at the beginning of a phone call. You can only do so much at the start of a journey, and then like it progresses there on like how you want to like further continue it or change or like grow and evolve. But like you at least have to just choose a starting point. So yeah, I feel like no one can give anybody the answers to everything. But just start. Play more. Be a little less serious. Enjoy yourself more.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is like it's a mindset shift, if anything, to start out with. And then you just build upon that.
Yeah.
And so how would you say things have changed for you now that you are like actively pursuing a more enjoyable life?
I'll definitely say I have a lot less stress. If someone asked me what I was stressed about, honestly, I wouldn't know. I do obviously have my bills to pay. I do obviously have the desire to like start a new job and also to get into med school. I think a lot of times when we look at ourselves, we kind of like see the like no's, the limitations, the like you can't do it. But I can only kind of see that I am equipped / have enough skill for it. Yes, there's like faith in Jesus, like he'll put you in like the rooms that like you're meant to be in. But like say one of the jobs that like I'm possibly interested in, a lot of the requirements is just like bachelor's and some experience in research, and I'm like, I have that. Other people, if they had those things, they'd still be looking for the things that they didn't have. Some other way to peg themselves down, because pegging yourself down is supposed to be some form of reality. I don't think so. I think it's supposed to be some form of like self-desecration, like removing joy / possibility from your life. And so I feel like it allows me to like try new things with the intent that it's like okay to fail. I think maybe that's one of the biggest things I love about kids. I went ice skating earlier today, and I was like, I want to learn how to skate backwards. The thing is, if you're gonna skate backwards or you're gonna try a new move or whatever, you have to be ready to fall on the ice. That's just it. You have to be ready to fall, to like bruise your tailbone and get up and keep smiling about it. I don't know if you've ever gone ice skating and seen like dozens of kids skate at the same time and also fall, but also be really good, is that they aren't afraid of falling down. Kids don't have a fear factor. Also, but like in the development of their brain, they don't have a fear factor yet. As opposed to where adults, like because they've experienced life and have now built up a bank of experiences, possibilities, and like other trivial things, that they do have a fear factor. But I think learning to let go of some of your fear is possibly the best thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah. Fear it's crippling. It keeps us from doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Channeling your childhood confidence. Because, kids are pretty confident. The way they'll just be outside doing whatever.
Yeah.
No, thank you for this. I've learned a lot. And I think it's just a reminder for me, too, to, like, just be more intentional about cultivating the kind of life that will bring the most joy.
Yeah. And I feel like hearing myself speak is also like, oh, I said these things. Now I must go and do them. But it's okay, because I do want to go do them. So it's just like an encouragement to do that as well.
Yeah. Not a judgment on like wherever you are, wherever you're starting, wherever you're coming into this conversation from, but an encouragement more so to like reframe how you think about the future, or not thinking about the future and just reframing the present. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, if you couldn't already tell by our conversation, the pursuit of joy is an ongoing endeavor. This was by no means a comprehensive guide, but it's a necessary reminder that basic things like being present, laughing, and investing in your relationship with yourself and others can make a big difference in your day-to-day. That being said, wherever you are in this journey, let me know how you plan to cultivate joy in your life this month. Till next time, follow at the Making Space podcast on Instagram for more content. Please rate the podcast wherever you listen and share this with someone who would benefit from hearing our conversation. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode of Making Space. Bye!